Have to get equal
All
here.
right. Well, hey, everybody. This is
Yeah.
Kai Deering, and you're on another episode of On the Fly with Kai. And this is our season 2, episode 44. I can't believe how fast time has flown by. And we will go dark next week with Thanksgiving. But I'm thankful for all of you who, watch the show live and all of you who are watching it on replay. We appreciate your support. And this show is all about some tips, tricks, and hacks, and for entrepreneurs, things I wish that I would have known prior to getting involved in. And now that I'm here, I've learned so much by interviewing successful entrepreneurs on the show. And really, today is no different. I met this gentleman, networking, which is a big way to grow our business. And I love the fact that he graduated from Sacramento State in 2016, and he played ball for them, and he went straight, like no job, if you will, but straight from there right into the financial services arena, and literally has never looked back. And I love the fact that he's completely understated, but a major go-getter. He's a huge success in his career, but I love that he also gives back. He continues to help coach baseball for the young folks in his life because, he's giving back to the community. And so please help me welcome to the show, Chris Lewis. We're excited to have you, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Kai.
Great. Well, I know I met you, was so impressed just with, because I did the college route too, and I kind of floundered and flopped around a little bit, had a few careers, and then finally landed, went from job, right, like we talked about, to 100% commission to self-employed. I think there was a natural progression right there, but you just kind of went for it. And so everyone likes to know, is it something innate that you're born with? Are you just like born an entrepreneur? Was it family that was entrepreneurs? Was it, a bad experience at a job, right? Like what made it so that you just got right out of college and said, I'm going for it?
You know, I was brought into the business by my brother. My brother is 8 years older than me, so he had some experience in this business, quite a bit of experience right out of college. So I would say he was definitely the trendsetter and the reason why I'm in it today. Um, Him and I had a really good relationship growing up. I trusted him infinitely with anything he told me, even if it was a lie. So when we talked about this business and getting into it, I just said, "Hey, I trust you, man, and I'd be okay with working with you." So um, did that, and I was actually talking about this with my colleague the other day, and I just think you get into things, and I think it doesn't always make sense, but if you're naive enough to go with it and not really understand the potential risks and all the hoops and leaps and bounds you have to jump to be successful, I don't think we would make the decision unless we're naive to do so. So I think I was pretty naive too, getting into it. And so, yeah, it was a mixture of my brother and probably me just not understanding what it was going to entail getting into this career.
I know, because it's a lot of education for you, continuing ed and all
Yeah.
kinds of things. And so was your degree in, finance and all of that? Like, did you have a vision in the beginning? Because like I have a sociology degree and a pre-med degree. I don't think I'm using either one now.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I showed up at my first day of college, and I was declared a kinesiology major, and I just thought, that's cool. I'll be a athletic trainer or something, because I was in sports and stuff. And I had my first academic advising meeting like a week into college, and they're like, you're not going to be able to practice and do kinesiology at the same time. There's just too much labs. It's going to conflict with practice hours. So you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, okay, what should I do? And they're like, a lot of athletes do communications. You should maybe check that out. And I'm like, okay, as long as I can get to practice, sign me up. So I ended up being an organizational communications major and rode that one out to the finish, graduated with a degree in that. And I didn't really know where that was going to take me. So here I am.
I'm assuming you're working in that field very much because communication is key in articulating financial concepts and things like that. And it's funny, I did the same thing. My first degree was sociology, and it was one of those things too where I was like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And they said, well, you got some credits. I think you could probably finish if you wanted to go fast in sociology. I'm like, great, that's my major. It was like,
Yeah.
okay.
All
And
right.
I'll do it. And I think the sports thing. So I played soccer through college, as well. And it seems like athleticism, athletes, whether they're pro or whether they're, just really competitive, it seems like that is a very good prerequisite. Sometimes it's not required, but it seems like it is a very good foundation for being successful in being self-employed. And I'm not quite sure why that is, but you had a really good insight on why sports and athletes tend to gravitate towards 100% commission, self-employed type of opportunities.
Yeah, no, I have thought about it quite a bit myself, and just when I reflect sometimes and thinking like, okay, how did I get into this? Why didn't I just take a regular 9 to 5 job that might be a little bit less stressful? So I think a little bit less stressful sometimes than this. And I just think that as athletes, especially if you play at higher levels, you fall in love with the work that is going to propel you to the next level. And so I think for me, and thinking about it, if I was just in a salary position, which there's nothing wrong with that, and I would probably be just fine doing that. But I don't think I would have that motivation, and that juice to feel like, okay, if I work hard, like I can succeed even higher than this. And so I think that at least part commission or full commission, some type of something like that is big for athletes, because it gives them that, okay, if I put this hard work in, the results are going to show up, on the field or in this job, or I'm going to be able to see the results, as opposed to maybe sometimes if you're, like I said, nothing wrong with salary position, but if you're in that, you maybe don't see all the benefits of your hard work. So I would definitely say I could see that being a big attraction. And then athletes always want to go above and beyond. And so that's obviously the luxury that you afford yourself if you end up going into a commission-based self-employed job. So I could definitely see that being a reason.
And I've always said, to me, business is like just a big, ginormous game. Like, how big
Yeah.
can you grow it? How much can you grow yourself? How much faster, stronger, better? It's just, I think that it's the same thing as an athlete. Like, you want to always be better, growing. What's a hack you can do to be faster and be better at the
Yeah.
game? So to me, it's fun. It's business is fun. It's a huge monopoly game. Like, how big can a tree grow? As big as it can, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's really fun. That's really fun. Now, I know you work with your brother, and there's a lot of self-employed people that work with a spouse, or they work with, like in my company, they've got 3 generations, right? It's, the grandparents and the kids and the mom and dad. It's crazy. And so I never saw that in corporate. Like, you can't be in a job in corporate and be like, invite your whole family to come, to your job as an engineer.
Yeah.
But when you're
Yeah.
self-employed, you can. And I see that a lot. Like, somebody owns a restaurant and their kids work there and they take it over and all that stuff. Talk about the dynamics of working with a family member. And like, the holidays are coming up. Do people want to just hurt you because you and your brother, all you're doing is talk about business? Like, talk about how that works, and some tips to be successful working with family.
Yeah. So I've obviously had the fortunate or luxury to work with my brother, but I also, the firm that I work with now is owned by a father's son, so I see their interactions as well, from a family dynamic standpoint. And I mean, I've heard horror stories, and I can see how working with family can really go south in a hurry. But I really think it can be great because you have that infinite trust a lot of times. If you have that with family members, like my brother and I know that no matter what, like we can trust each other no matter what. Like we're always going to have each other's best interests in mind. Same with the father and son that I work with as well. I could see that they know that they're always going to have their best interests in mind, which I know is not always the case with family. But if you have that relationship with them, that can really make it work, and it makes it that much stronger because it goes way beyond just the business. You're like, this person has my back no matter what. And so me and my brother had that good relationship at a young age and built that at a young age. He's 8 years older than me, so I was lucky to have more of a mentor than an older brother. But I, from that relationship and the one that I view with my colleagues as well, it's just that trust. You can't really you can't really buy that anywhere, and it's hard to get unless it's like your best friend, you know? So that's what makes it work well.
And I have heard people say, oh, well, because I'll say, make a list, right? We all in self-employed, you got to make a list, whether it's a restaurant or whatever, to show people, hey, here's what I've made a transition to. And they're like, oh, I don't want to work with my friends and family. I'm like, well, that's stupid. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, they're the people that are going to support you the most. I mean, so it just makes sense. And congratulations on figuring that out really early in life. Now, I know you say that I don't necessarily identify or, with millennial, but you're a full-on
Yeah.
millennial. And there have been a lot of stereotypes about millennials. I'm just like, oh, these poor babies, like they're narcissistic, they have ADHD, all of them, no attention span, no da, 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 da. And you are really the antithesis of that. Like, you are focused and brave and, willing to stick with something, which I just don't see very often. They're like, oh, butterfly, and they're gone, right? Like, because I work with a lot of them in my company. But it's a tough gig doing self-employed. Think about it. 90% of all businesses fail. 90% of realtors never sell a house. I mean, financial services is probably even a little bit higher on the failure rate. So this is a twofold question. So number one, what makes you different than other millennials? Because you are different. And number two is what makes you, and it could be one and the same, what makes you different from all the people that failed that joined financial services? Because it's the carnage on the financial guru highway of people that didn't make it is pretty high, right? So speak to that, the age group
Absolutely.
thing, and speak to the, what makes you different and be successful.
That's a great question. And I often look at other people and I'm like, wow, they got some really great qualities. I wish I had those qualities, So I haven't really thought about what makes me different. But if I had to guess, I would say that I'm pretty stubborn and I don't really like change that much. I don't identify, or I don't adapt with change like with like what a lot of people can do, or what millennials can do. They say butterfly, they're gone, right? For me, I'm like, no, I put all my time into where I'm at right now. I don't really want to change this. I don't want to restart, you know what I'm saying? Unless I really have to. So I would say from that standpoint, I'm like, no, I don't really like change that much. And so it's caused me to stick with what I'm doing and continue to work hard and find some way to be successful in it. That's definitely been one. And then the other one would be like, yeah, I'm stubborn in the fact that I'm like, if someone else can be successful in this, I can figure out a way to do that as well. And so I never wanted to quit or be a quitter, I guess you could say. I'm not like bagging on people that take other routes and things like that. But for me personally, I didn't want to look myself in the mirror and be like, dude, you quit before you put your best effort out there, because I feel like if I give my best effort, I can find some way to be successful. So the fear of change and not wanting to quit are the two things that probably have driven me to stay where I am.
And it's funny that you say that too, because whatever it was, like, let's say I joined my company, Legal Shield, and people started like, are you sure that's so risky? You know what I mean? I'd be like,
Yeah,
it was fuel to me to be like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then I can resonate with the fact that, like, I figured if somebody else could do this, then I could do this too. I just got to crack the code. It's always like crack the code, crack the code. And I
Yeah,
love being self-employed because it's a little bit unlike being an athlete. Like, it's pretty unfair. Like, my husband's a great basketball player, but he doesn't have the height. There's no way he's going to play pro ball. But in business, everybody's eligible. Do you know what I mean? Like, it
yeah.
doesn't matter.
That's a Yep.
All of that. It's exciting. So I love that this is a level playing field for everybody. And for those of you who are watching live, if you've got questions, we can actually see your questions. If you put them onto Facebook thread, we can see your comments and your questions. It's kind of cool. You also said one of your superhero powers is your focus. And I think young people just in general, regardless of if they're a millennial or not, there's a lot of distractions. There's hey, especially even in sports, right? They'd be like, hey, come out, let's party tonight. You're like, no, I got a game in the morning. So I think part of those skills are transferable as well. Tell me about, your focus. And I know you don't drink, so that's a big distraction that I think young people have too, that you've already, conquered that. But talk about how you stay, focused.
I would say the biggest thing is making something a priority. Like I notice like when I have like a long list of things to do, and I'm thinking about trying to do all of those things at once, it's hard to get focused in on one of them. So in my life, like if I have my work, my at home, my friends, going out, all this different stuff that I want to do at once, well, I'm not fully focused on one thing. Therefore, I'm probably not doing a great job at it. So I try to prioritize and make certain things a priority, at least at different points, like in the day or in the week. And sometimes I overlap and keep something a priority when I'm at home and should just be at home hanging out. But I would say that like understanding what's a priority and what my main focus is has been very helpful in keeping me dialed in on certain things, not trying to do a bunch of different things at once. And so, um, career wise, I think that's helped a lot. And I think I just focus in, and that's going to be my number one priority right now. And nothing else is really going to take precedent over that, unless, of course, there's an emergency. But yeah,
I think, what we focus on expands. And so if you have diffused awareness, you're not going to be able to focus on anything. And I loved that, you're talking basically about compartmentalizing. So when you're at home and with your girlfriend, she's adorable, be present is what you're saying. And when you're at work, be at work, and keep those focuses compartmentalized. That's awesome. I really, really like that a lot. There's also been, I'm assuming, some mistakes that you've made. And so when I, kind of look back on, my long career, I think, I probably could have done something a little different here, a little different there, and it would have propelled me a little bit faster. I thought like one of the biggest mistakes I made was I did my business on the side because I owned an insurance company, and I
yeah,
probably quit doing that a little bit too soon, and it financially was a little bit of a challenge. I probably should have held on to both a little bit longer. So, what if you was something that you could share? Because people learn a lot from mistakes, and the mistakes of others is a lot less painful than mistakes of your own.
absolutely. In general, I would say early on, I mean, and you and I talked about this, I think just as a young person, for some reason, we think that we got it figured out or we have an idea of how the world works. And I mean, to be honest with you, if there's any young people listening to this, you really don't. And I don't even to this day. And I don't think I ever will. So the sooner that you can come to grips with that and notice yourself when you think you got it all figured out and just say, no, man, you don't have it all figured out, I think the better. And I think made that would have made me early on a lot more humble and open minded. I think I thought, oh, whatever, I play baseball, like yada yada yada, like I know my place in this world, and there's a big world out there beyond sports, beyond our businesses, beyond everything. And if we're open minded, I think we can learn a lot, and it keeps us humble and it keeps us like I heard about this thing called a beginner's mindset. And I feel like when we have that beginner's mindset, we take in a lot of information. And I mean, you start learning about people too. And in business, I mean, it's all about connecting with people. So if you have that open beginner mindset, I mean, you can learn a lot and you can connect with people on a better level too. So I would say being open minded was not my strong suit. And it's something that I can continue not at, or and doing that early on would have helped a lot. I feel like that was you could call it a mistake, but something I wasn't aware of at the time.
Yeah, they call that scotoma, what you can't see, the blind spots, right? And I remember being young and
Yeah.
thinking I knew it all. Like you could not tell me anything. And then that epiphany of, you don't know what you don't know. And all of a sudden I was like, I was aware that I didn't know what I didn't know. And it started a lifelong journey of exploration, learning, like you said, listening to mentors, being humble, you can learn something from everybody for sure. That's very insightful.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. And it's also funny too, because I think like if you think like, oh, I've arrived, you're going to start slipping back because you're always either growing or you're dying. There's no in between. And, ripe and rotting or you're green and growing.
Exactly.
And it's important we stay in that thing. You are definitely kind of an old soul in a young person's package. And I love that about you. Is there some books or people that you follow, maybe on podcasts or something like that? Is there something like that you study? Is it Think and Grow Rich? Because I remember reading Rich Dad Poor Dad was my first book, kind of like in that space. That was like, oh gosh, there's a whole big world out there. Is there anything that was sort of like an aha for you, or something you study, or a book or person you really like?
Trying to think. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've read Think and Grow Rich. I've read a handful of books. Not as much as some people do. So I know some people read a book a week. Um, there's nothing really specific that I would say. I would say, and this might ring true for some people, and what I've noticed is like I've tried to gain a lot of knowledge by reading things, and in my business, you have to go through continuing education, or you have to get these certain designations and continue your education. And I thought things like that would really help me further my knowledge in certain areas. But I've really found that going out and experiencing things, experiencing new things, experiencing new people. And for me, it's like that's what kind of aligns with me, is just experience and having that experience. And then that helps me understand it. So, again, I know it's really general, but I would just say I didn't find, or I haven't found any yet in a book that has really like propelled me. I would just say experiencing things firsthand, like hands on over time, which can be scary because you kind of want to know what's going on and how to do things before you go and do them. But that has taught me the most in like just in general, in business and life and everything, like I could have read a book on how to swing a bat, but until I got in and swung the bat 20,000 times, there was just certain things I'd pick up and understand, like physically and mentally, from doing it 20,000 times, and it's like that 10,000 hour rule. So I would say and I try to encourage myself to do that, is continue to have experiences and do things and reps and practice and everything like that. And I think it'll come over time. You start learning more over time in that way.
Yeah, I mean it's muscle memory like it was in sports, but we're doing that in business, right? It's spaced repetition. I love that. That's a great advice. And if you quit, you won't be able to get there, right? I mean, that's part of the whole hack. Just stick and stay.
Exactly.
If what you're doing isn't stupid and you like it, and someone else has done what you want to do, just stay until.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
So I know as a young person, I mean, it's so fun listening to you because I remember being, like young and I'm like, okay, well, I want to do sales. I don't know anybody. Like, I mean, all I know are dumb, broke kids like me, right? Like, how am I going to do this thing? I mean, and I remember my first sales job. I had moved to California from Oregon and I couldn't sell out of state at that time. And I was like, I don't even know anybody here. I moved here with
That's
no
tough.
connections, no nothing. I think when I first became like self-employed, I was probably a little bit younger than you are now, but I didn't start quite as early. I was like, maybe my first sales job was like 24. I moved here. I mean, I was like, I didn't have anything. And so I know that can be a challenge and an excuse, right? Because, oh, I don't know anybody. I can't do that business. So you've overcome that. And I met you networking, and I know that's been a big part of your strategy. Talk to us about, how did you, because you're in a people business, you need people to talk to. I do too. How did
Yeah.
you grow that, and talk about, networking and how you did that?
Yeah, I would definitely say step one for me was stepping out of my comfort zone. I had my group, my friends, my family, my stuff, everything that I knew and was close to me, coming out of college. And I didn't really ever have to step outside of that. I just could stay in that little bubble. I had a team, I had friends, I had this and that, and didn't really need to step outside of that. So when I got into this career, um, yeah, I needed other people to talk to in order to survive. And so I joined a networking group, which was great because it helped me connect with, and I was very fortunate to have the people in my group that I did. And it helped me connect with people who were very successful, very influential. And I started spending significant time with them, not just on business basis, but personal basis, and learned a lot, got introduced to more people, and it just kind of grew on itself um, from a business standpoint. And then within my own business, I didn't just stay in my little bubble and stay with myself and go around. I started working with other people, and that's how I'm with the firm that I'm with today. Is hey, can you help me out with this? Can I work with you? Can I learn from you? Can I? And I've worked with several different people, within my own business to learn, and it's caused me to have some good relationships and good connections and take me to where I am today. So I would definitely say it was for me stepping out of myself, stepping out of my comfort zone and meeting new people and going out on a limb and working with new people was like a big one for me. And it wasn't easy to do. I was comfortable with where I was and what I was doing, and I did that, and it's been great. It's definitely paid off well, but it wasn't easy to do early on.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, especially I remember joining my first networking group and I was the youngest person in the group by about 20 years. And I'm like, I felt really intimidated and under like, out of my comfort zone. But really, that's where all the money's made is outside of our comfort zone. And so, a Business Network
Yeah,
International is where we've met BNI, and I highly recommend you take a look at that and reach out to Chris or I, and we can help sponsor you into BNI and help you. Grow and figure out how it works and all that stuff. So if you've got questions about that, by all means, reach out to myself. You're on my page, so you know where that is. And also you can reach out to you know, Chris on LinkedIn. So he's Chris L6 on LinkedIn. And you can hit us up about BNI or finances. You can hit him up about finances, all kinds of things. But it's fun to put a face with a name. I know we only have a few minutes remaining. It went super fast, but there was a lot of great nuggets here today. If you were to just, any last parting final thoughts that you want to share with either an existing entrepreneur like you or a budding entrepreneurs, or any final thoughts that you would leave somebody with that would help them be successful?
yeah. I got one thought, and I was just talking about this with my girlfriend. I would say to anyone, and I talking to myself as well, um, budding entrepreneur or maybe new entrepreneur, some new commission based job, be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Don't try to be like the person next to you who's very successful. Take things that have made people successful or what you learned through your own experience and make it you. I feel like that was another mistake that I made or continue to make sometimes too, is feeling like I need to be like someone else in order to be successful. When I mean, after you get through all of that and get through all the heartache, you're like, oh my gosh, I just needed to be myself, and that was it. And so, and if it doesn't work being yourself, then that's clearly not the right path for you. So, the sooner you can figure that out, the better. And so, I'd say just try to be yourself and figure out what's you and flavor things around you to make you successful.
I love that. I feel like that's the authenticity. And if you're in a business where you don't feel like you can be authentic, get out because, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it forever, like you're talking about. Well, there is you've seen his LinkedIn. And if you are interested in more information and connecting with Chris Lewis, he does have a 30-minute Calendly opportunity for you to go on, get on his calendar and discuss finances, business, whatever you want. Is that pretty true, Chris?
Yeah, we can do a intro call if you want to talk about your personal finances and want to learn more about our firm, or we can do just a networking one-to-one, whatever works for other people. Happy to connect if you guys want to schedule a time to connect.
Perfect. So hopefully you had enough time to jot that down on there or hit him up on LinkedIn and have a conversation there as well. With that, Chris, I want to thank you so much for being on the show here today. You were amazing and a lot of great insights there. For everybody else, thank you so much. For those of you who watched live or on the replay, this was another fantastic episode of On the Fly with Kai, where every week I try to bring to you people that I really know, that I've either done business with or know personally, that can bring some value to you, your business, and your entrepreneurial journey. Next week, again, is Thanksgiving. And so we will not be meeting on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We will take a week off and come back to you live again the first week in December. And I have got a great author who has some great ideas on how to use curriculum and ideas on writing to create some passive residual assets for you and your business. So with that, have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for all of you. Take care, take charge, and we'll see you over the top. Thanks again, Chris. Bye, everybody.